Something I find that I am mentally keeping track of and trying to avoid as much as possible as I make these videos is references, relying on external sources or familiarity, references to things. Well, for example, I have mentioned Disney, I have mentioned Rome and China. These are, three external things that I don't have any stake or claim in, that I don't own in any way. I don't have, there are things in the world that are outside of me, and I assume that my audience, if there is one, the listener, the reader, is familiar with those, but also that it's a kind of a mutually, we don't own Disney or Rome or China. And yeah, I find every time I do bring one of those in, I realize that that's in a way that reference is now part of the canon of these videos, this story I'm telling. It's not. I don't think it really counts. I don't know if it's a story, but this bleh, whatever it is, the world that I'm describing, which is just my own thoughts and feelings about art and stuff. So, but I own, as much as one can own, I suppose, my thoughts and feelings about art and stuff. That they are mine to make and change and assign and alter as suits my whim. But every time I mention something that is outside of me, that it kind of anchors to that external concept, because what at least, well, I guess Rome is still a city, but I suppose when I said it, I meant, ancient Rome. I did say ancient Rome. The I assume that when I say ancient Rome today, that tomorrow the context of what that means will be the same. And I assume similarly about large, just big stuff like China or Disney, because they have so much inertia in the world. But if I mentioned, a YouTube celebrity or a particular song or a politician or political movement or social movement, what that may mean today, I fully expect would mean something different tomorrow. And so trying to communicate using those common points of reference does wonders for the ability to communicate in the moment. But when it comes to messages in a static form like video or print, I find that having those citations, those references, often brings in much more misunderstanding than understanding. And yeah, because I'm assuming that when I say blankety blank about, a mutual thing in our world, that A, you are familiar with it, B, that it means similar things to you that it does me, and C, well, I forget where I was in the list, but like a subset of that last one, because I don't think it's its own one, is time delay of when I say something today, even if you heard it the day I recorded it, and you would get what I mean, because you'd probably hear it sometime in the future, that drift of meaning, that drift of context, just opens up huge doors for misunderstanding. And I don't really know. Yeah, I think this is something that the more I started taking the idea seriously of writing, of doing world building, of making stories or a game or something, the more you have to kind of face that, well, I'm inspired by a lot of art and culture and myth and whatnot, but if I want to make my own thing, my own world that has certain elements inspired by other things, the decoupling of the distilling of, well, what are those other things in essence at like the trope level or below, so that I can make my own version without plagiarizing. And that avoidance of plagiarizing, really is a process that I think has pushed me more and more to at least be cognizant of the sources I'm citing, and not sources in like I'm getting some source or reference, because those can be murky, of which one's which. So yeah, that's a oh, well, I realize also I've mentioned a lot of countries and things that are in reference to the visuals that we're seeing. Um, but that's not, I guess I feel that's not the canon of what I'm talking about. That's about the visuals, not about the things I'm talking about. So that seems different. Hmm. Okay. I guess I'm learning about what I'm making here. Um, so anyway, on that thought, what we're looking at now is a video I took also this year in 2020 of Washington, D.C. as I think this is like week 1 or 2 of the BLM protests. And so it's during the pandemic and all that jazz. And I just filmed this little walk here. It's a lot of businesses putting up plywood. Well, it's a lot of contractors putting up plywood for businesses. I assume. I didn't really, ask about the logistics, um, in preparation for demonstrations and, not wanting their windows broken. Um, yeah, and the video at the beginning of this, the visual at the beginning of this video was, not the Acropolis. It's the hill next to the Acropolis that has a name and is important, but I don't remember the name. It's not the one that's something about democracy. It's the one between those. I don't know. I didn't go on a tour.